What is up, NFL fans, and welcome back to another episode of The Way We See It. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by Wesley Coleman. Wesley, we are getting so close. How are you doing?
Man, I'm good. It's close. Yeah, this is
Yes.
we're like final rosters coming out, last few like practices and all that before we're really a lot of teams are going and shutting it down to where no media availability the last week or week and a
Yep.
half, whatever. So we got games in, I mean, 2 weeks. Wednesday, September 9th
Yeah.
is a real NFL game.
Well, what's crazy is that this is the final week of the preseason, and then roster cutdowns happen this upcoming Sunday. And we're going to talk about some of these things and how they used to be done and compared to how they're done now and what we think of that. But ultimately, it's getting down to the nitty gritty. But I will say that next week is always the worst week for me because it's that week where there is absolutely nothing. They've made their roster cuts, they have a week off, and then it's the week after they start to get ready for the week one game. But let's start off and let's finish this up because it's supposedly been leaked. The NFL's top 100 is a wrap. What do you got for us, Wesley?
Well, so we ended at number 19 being Justin Jefferson. Going forward, now all this is official to the top 10. Then the top 9 is heavily rumored to what it is. So 18 Patrick Mahomes, 17 Jonathan Taylor, 16 Jamar Chase, 15 Derrick Henry, 14 Brian Burns. That's He went from not ranked to 14th.
That's pretty
Um,
high.
13th Trey McBride. I mean, I like him, but man, Will Anderson Jr., number 12. 11, Drake May. I have questions. Number 10, Patrick Surtain. Number 9, Micah Parsons. What are we
Really?
talking? Number 8, Jameer Gibbs. That seems low. 7, Christian McCaffrey. 6, Bijan Robinson. 5, Josh Allen. 4, Puka Nakua. 3, JSN. Number 2, Miles Garrett. And number 1, Matthew Stafford. That's right. 3 of the top 4 are Los Angeles Rams.
They are the darlings this year, man. Everyone's talking about the Rams. They're saying, "Oh, when Aaron Donald comes back, they're going to win it all." And they could. They could. You never know. But I don't know anything.
The top eight's hard to argue with. Maybe I'd put Jameer Gibbs higher, but I mean above Micah Parsons. I mean, who cares what order they're in? That top 8 kind of makes sense. I'd probably put Patrick Surtain somewhere up in that top 8, a little bit higher than number 10, but and Will Anderson Jr. 12 seems low for him, but
I feel like you're splitting hairs at some
you
point.
really
You
are
know,
at that point. So it's like,
you're talking about really good football players. The thing I don't get is like the Michael Parsons who didn't even play much last year because of his injury. How does he get elevated that high? But that's neither here nor there. We've talked about the list. There's the list. We wrap up the top 100. We'll see if the leaks are
done
true.
with it.
Done with it. Let's go on. The preseason, as we mentioned at the top of the show, is wrapping up this week. The preseason finale. I want to ask you though, from a fan's perspective, how do you like the way the NFL does things now? It's been a couple years now since they've went from 4 games to 3. Obviously, some teams, in this case, the Panthers and the Cardinals, have 4 games because they participate in the Hall of Fame game. Not just the preseason number of games. Do you like having that week off prior to week one? Do you also like the fact that they don't have the waves of cut downs like they used to and all the players, all the teams, 90 to 53, drop of a hat? What's your take on that?
Yeah, so multiple sides to this is one. I definitely like the late cut downs. That allows you to, absorb injuries, get another extra couple weeks of looking at somebody. It also allows you to rest starters if that's what you choose to do.
Yeah.
So I do like the later cut downs and the big cut down all at once. I'm a fan of that. For the number of preseason games, I'll tell you this: I'm always going to be skewed by. I think that preseason games and the fact that if you don't know this, if you buy season tickets and your team has 8 preseason or 8 home games and then 2 preseason games, you have to buy all 10 games and they're all the same price.
Yeah.
Preseason game tickets cost the same as regular games. So I think the preseason games and the way that they're sold is the biggest scam in the NFL. It's terrible. I hate it. So I'm always going to be skewed by that. But and then now we have even more of teams like the Saints, for instance. Not a single Saints starter has played in either one of the 2 preseason games, offense or defense. Not a single one.
Yeah.
We've had our scrimmages, our practices. We've had injuries. We're trying to keep people healthy. So people have paid regular season prices for tickets to go watch people that are never going to play in the NFL. And so at this point, like just decreasing the preseason games and the is fine with me. And the rumor has always been that when we do eventually go to the 18th game, it's you're going to go to 2 preseason games. Don't care, not interested, whatever. Like I like it for this perspective. I can talk to friends about, oh, you saw that one drive where all the starters played and we got a touchdown, so we're going to score a touchdown on every drive this season. Sure, I like that, but it's completely useless to me.
Yeah. Well, I want to go back to the cut downs. You said you like it. I do like the fact that you have your full 90 players on your final preseason game. That way, like you said, if a team wants to empty its bench for the second half, you're risking guys that aren't going to make the team anyways, and they get to put tape out there for another team that might want to pick them up. But just keep in mind, folks, that every team does this differently. In the past, now this is a new regime with the Steelers, but as I cover them, it's who I'm going to talk about. The Steelers have typically released players in waves, even though they don't have to wait till Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern time or something like that. They will cut players on Friday, the day after the game, Saturday, and it's like the 10 at a time. And a lot of times you'll see that first wave of cuts will be like, whoa, really? They're cutting this guy? And the reason is they're doing them a solid.
Yeah, of course.
Hey, we're going to get you out there earlier. Maybe you can find a new home.
It lets them return to their college team a couple days earlier so they can get ready for the week one of the college season.
We are going to talk about that for sure. That's on the docket to talk about. But I'm with you, though. I think the preseason is at times. And again, I'm curious, the NFL, did they reprimand the Saints for that brawl in the scrimmage?
The Saints and Cowboys each got $500,000 fines, and then it's up to the teams of how they were going to distribute that to players. It is crazy to me that we have multiple reports of Cowboys fighting Cowboys at their own solo practices with no other teams. The Saints had 0 fights they had scrimmages with the Jaguars and a game with the Jaguars. They had scrimmages with the Rams and a game with the Rams. 0 fights with the Saints. And then now what's the stupidest thing is the Saints this week on Friday play the Cowboys in a preseason game after all of this bad blood and whatever's going on out there.
Yeah. Well, the reason I bring that up is not to bring up the Saints being an issue, but the fact that if the NFL were to say, okay, we're going to cut eventually down to 2 preseason games, if they were to limit things like joint practices or maybe say that they're not allowed based on the amount of issues they're having, well, that would really screw the teams over there trying to really evaluate their roster. Because I can't speak for any other team, but there have been players that have made big plays in preseason games and have won themselves a roster spot. And if they don't have those opportunities, you have to wonder how they're going to get them.
I can't see the NFL ever making a call on the scrimmages against each other and stuff like that. I think that'd be out. I think they'd struggle to get that actually implemented.
I would hope not, but still, you brought it up, so let's transition to the NCAA talk. I just want to state that as it is being recorded, I don't believe this is finalized. I do know the appeals court was going to hear this. And it is the ruling that any player that has eligibility remaining, even if they went undrafted and signed as an undrafted rookie, or if they were drafted and lose their job and they get cut, have the option to return and use that eligibility in college. There's already
hold on. Well, okay. Hold on. Not exactly. Not okay, everybody who has a year remaining. If you were part of the 2022 class and have played 4 years in college, you are eligible for a 5th year. Not if you were part of the 2012 class and you did your 3 years and went if you're part of the 2022 class, so you've only done your 4 years, this has nothing to do with injuries or red shirts. If you graduated high school 4 years ago, this would be your 5th year, which is the new rule that started this year. They're just backdated. They're grandfathering in one class of people.
Okay.
People that graduated high school in 2022.
So is this going to be, if it passes, is this going to be forever? Meaning if you still have this, it's just a one-time thing.
It's gonna revolve around these, somewhere between 16 and 35 players who played 4 years in college, have stepped away. Now, not all of them went to the NFL. Not all of them got drafted. Not all of them signed undrafted free agents. There's a defensive end for Notre Dame that did his 4 years, left, and I mean he was done playing football essentially the 5th year, and he has returned to football. Just happens to be for LSU. But they so it's just concerning this one class of people who graduated high school in 2022, and they've only had their 4 years.
There are some people that are thinking that this is going to open Pandora's box, and that eventually people are going to say, well, wait a second. I graduated in 2023 and I only used my 4 years. I want a 5th year as well. And the precedent's going to be set. So we'll see how this goes. But
the Bengals bye week, I'm hearing that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are going to play for LSU.
You wish, but still, LSU and Lane Kiffin are getting like a bullseye put on them because Lane Kiffin has a deal in place with, I think it's a Cleveland Browns player who is not expected to make the roster, and he's going to return and play for LSU. And Lane Kiffin, I give him a ton of credit. He stood up and said, look, it's not my fault. Don't be mad at me. I'm not the one that's making this a rule. My job is to get my team ready to go, to put the best team or assemble a roster. And if that's something I can do, why wouldn't I do it? You know, like, this is kind of like when the Clemson coach, Dabo Sweeney, was like, I'm not going to do the transfer portal thing. Okay, you like losing games then? I mean, because everyone else is. Right. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I will say this, whether it was Lane Kiffin and LSU or Alabama or even Ole Miss or whatever, if you don't, the rules are the rules. So if the rule allows you to get somebody on campus that is talented, that is your job. I mean, there's millions and millions of dollars. You're talking about college teams with $40 million rosters now, and coaches making between $10 and $20 million a year. Everybody's trying to do well, and it is what it is. I mean, you can not like it, but it would suck to be like, nope, I morally don't feel right about it, I'm not doing it, and then you play against 3 of those guys in week 3 in your most important game of the year or whatever it is. So the rules are the rules. I think that if you don't like them, change them. And there's a whole lot of stuff that's been going on. It's funny that like Ole Miss fans are hating this the most because Daquan Wright played for Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss last year and is now coming to play for Lane Kiffin at LSU. Well, Ole Miss's quarterback Trinidad Chambliss has less reason to be playing another year of college football than Daquan Wright does. So, in an Ole Miss, local graduate judge allowed him to. So, this is what we're doing right now. But there's a reason why Congress is stepping in and actually making rules. And people want to talk about, we don't want to get too political, but people saying that Congress should be doing better things. Well, Congress is going to fix this. They're putting in rules in place to where judges can't make these decisions and college coaches can't make these decisions, and SEC commissioners can't. They're just going to put rules in place to where you get your 5 years. And this is a little snippet of the last time it's probably going to happen in this form.
So what's your take? Do you like this? Do you think this is fair? Do you think it's stupid? I haven't, we've talked about all the background stuff, but I have your opinion.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some gray area because you're talking about the new rule is you get 5 years, and they should listen. Everybody that made this rule screwed up on the timing of when they made it and the language of it. They should have been clear about this is for people starting in this year, or they should have waited until after the year. If they'd have waited till after the NFL season started and after the college season started, and be like, okay, moving forward, everybody from these classes has 5 years. I'm glad they're making the rule. This one class being caught in the middle is kind of mess. No, I don't really like it. Am I happy about that? If somebody is going to benefit from it, it looks like it's going to be LSU because Jack Pyburn, the defensive end, he was at LSU last year. Whenever he gets cut by the Bucks, he's going to return to LSU. And then Xavier Harris, a huge defensive end, a 6'8", 330-pound defensive lineman who played at Ole Miss last year, has already been cut by the Saints a couple weeks ago. He's returning. He's going to play for LSU as well. So I'm happy that LSU is going. If somebody's going to take advantage of it, I'm glad it's LSU. But no, in general, I don't like it. I wish it wasn't being done. But it is what it is.
So here's my question. So these players that you talked about that are going to go to LSU, and I'm sure there's going to be other colleges that are going to benefit from this.
There's multiple. There's LSU's the big name.
It's not just LSU. Yeah. Are they going to have to become draft eligible again?
No.
Uh,
From what I understand is these players, even though they've been cut, like they're if they're not going to get picked up, I think that they don't go back in the draft. They pick back up with their old contract. Now, some of them being cut and all, it becomes kind of weird. So I guarantee we're also going to have a different kind of ruling and idea on
yeah.
that and what that looks like, and if they are essentially can't be drafted, but they are can be sign undrafted free agent contracts a year from now. I don't know. That's probably going to be another lawsuit.
Well, and the part of me is thinking, okay, well, let's say an NFL team suffers a bunch of injuries and let's use the guy that was the linebacker that's going to go back and play for LSU that was with the Browns. And they're like, hey, this
Tight end.
guy, the tight end, I'm sorry. Well, we could use a tight end. He has some skill set that we would maybe want to add to our practice squad or put on our 53-man roster. But he's at LSU. Can they sign him? Can
Yeah.
he leave LSU? Like, to me, this
I'm
is
sure his
opening up, like
LSU
I said earlier, I
contract
think it
is
feels like
not.
it's opening up Pandora's box.
Yeah, I'm sure his LSU contract won't allow that. And I'll tell you what, this I would feel different if we were talking about, an NFL Pro Bowler who's been in the NFL for a year returns just to beat up on college students and stuff like that. I'd
Right.
feel different. These are guys who aren't making NFL rosters. I mean, it's
Sure.
not like Fernando Mendoza is returning, or it's nothing getting goofy like that. It's not the best players. There's 7 drafts, there's 7 rounds, there's 53 players going to make each team. These are people who aren't going to make teams. So yes, college and NFL is a huge difference, and somebody that can be cut from an NFL team could be one of the best in college. But I also we don't need to overplay that these are, some starting quarterback or starting running back
Right.
or starting middle linebacker. It's some guys that are going to be some good, very good second and third string depth pieces.
If the NFL is looking at this ruling and saying this is a concern, I don't. If they're saying we don't like this, I think this should be motivation for the NFL to reach out to maybe like the UFL and say we want to develop a system almost like team. I remember NFL Europe. You're old enough to remember NFL Europe, where you
Thanks.
could send players there to stay within your
Yeah.
system. You still had contractual control over them, and there would only be a select number of players you could do this. It's not like you could just say every single person on our 90-man offseason roster we have contractual control over. No, maybe you would pick 20. And hey, these guys are going to go to this UFL team. You're going to work out there. You're going to practice. You're going to play. We're going to have our coaching systems there.
Right.
I think that has to be the next logical step if the college football thing does come to fruition and they are able to return. I don't know what's your take on that.
I think the 5th year of college is going to solve a lot of this. Honestly, I think that an extra year of growth and turning into an adult and learning more, and the more and more college programs that are getting NFL, pro systems, I think will help. I think we will have a better NFL. I wish that there was more NBA players that had to play an extra year in college. I think that the NBA product would be better. So I don't know. And then you've always got there's not going to be an NFL Europe, but the UFL could help for football stuff. If you got somebody you just need them to get in better cardio shape, you could let them play in the WNBA for a season. I mean, there's all kinds of options for NFL teams. Sure.
Boy, you're batting 1,000 with the political statements today. Good job. All right. Well, we're going to leave that topic real quick. And you wanted to talk about something that was very interesting and it's very spot on. I want to let you have the floor about backup quarterback debates and conversations. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think there's huge conversations going on right now of who's going to be the backup quarterback in the second string quarterback and the third string quarterback in all these places. Is JJ McCarthy or Carson Wentz going to be the second or third string? Is it Riley Leonard or Anthony Richardson? Is it Tanner McKee or Andy Dalton? Here's my theory is that 99% of the time it doesn't matter, because outside of Fernando Mendoza is going to be the second string, but we all know he's becoming the starter. He's learning more NFL. But the difference between Ty Simpson and Stetson Bennett, there are not 32 NFL quality starters on the planet for quarterbacks. So there definitely are not 64. And
Right.
when we're talking about third strings, it doesn't exist. There's not that many. And so outside of really, really rare situation where you just get lucky and you have the right coaching staff and team. If you lose your starting quarterback, you are screwed. If you're screwed for the rest of that game and for however many games he misses, and probably the season once that happens. It's very, very rare that this second stringer comes in and leads you on a playoff run. Now, and if he does, like with let's Tom Brady obviously at one time was a backup. The whole NFL screwed up on missing on Tom Brady. Like the Patriots got lucky that he was good and that he took over. So again, outside of you just getting lucky, if you lose your starter, you're good because let's say there's 24 or less starting quarterbacks in the NFL. Like that, you're like this. I'm not even looking. Like I'm done. I've got my quarterback.
Well, last year was a prime example of this. And I've always said, people will say like, Jeff, who should be the backup quarterback for the Steelers? And I always say it all depends on like what happens to the starter. So for instance, if Aaron Rodgers in this case loses, he gets a sprained ankle, he misses 2 weeks. Okay. We just need a guy that can step in and win you a couple games. Not every quarterback can do that. But in the case of the Steelers, Mason Rudolph has shown that he can win like a couple games. If Aaron Rodgers tears his ACL and is done for the year, you're F no matter what. So at that point, it doesn't matter. Look at last year's Cincinnati Bengals. I think this is a prime example.
Yep.
Joe Burrow goes down and they turn to their backup. I can't remember the dude's name. Help me out here.
Was it Easton something or other? Something Easton?
No, I'll think of it. Anyways, they ended up to trade within the division for Joe Flacco. And so Joe Flacco comes in and actually wins them some games because he's throwing to T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Like it's a really good offense and he's smart enough and has enough experience. But even then, it caught up to him. And then Joe Burrow comes back. What did they win? 6 games last year? If you lose your starting quarterback, especially if your quarterback has a Joe Burrow type talent, you're F no matter what.
Right. I mean, there's
Jake Browning. I just remembered it.
Jake Browning, yeah. Yeah, well, that was how what's funny is I was just going to say the Bucks, their big thing because of their problems with Baker Mayfield is Jalen Daniels or Jake Browning going to win the second string quarterback job? You're screwed if Baker Mayfield gets hurt. Like it's just I don't know. It's just funny. Like, and I get it. We need something to talk about, and we just talked about the starters aren't playing, so these are the guys playing quarterback, the most important position in all of sports. So it's something to talk about, but. Like, let's limit how much we're talking about because honestly, if your starter goes down, you're absolutely screwed.
But let's bring up this part about the backup quarterback debates and discussions because you were here just a year ago. Steelers are kind of in it now, and that is you have these young quarterbacks on your roster who are not expected to play at all this year, but people are wondering, could they be a future player? The Steelers were talking about Will Howard. You obviously, with Tyler Shuck last year's a rookie, Spencer Rattler, who's been in the organization for a while now. I think there is some value in seeing what they can do, but I mean, Steeler fans are bickering on social media. It's like two camps in a civil war, but the Howard versus Aller, and this guy should stick in that. But really, ultimately, it's like, okay, yeah, Aaron Rodgers is going to be here for one more year. Do you have someone for 2027? There is some, I think, evaluation of the preseason and backup quarterbacks is valuable, but even then, it's preseason football. You're not playing against starters. You're not playing against a team that's game planning to take away what you want to do. It's valuable in a sense, but not to the point that I think a lot of people consider it.
Well, and I think that there's, like you said, there's a difference between, if your starter in the fourth quarter and you're winning by 10, sprains his ankle and you're like, okay, I just need a guy who's not going to make us go negative 11 points during the fourth quarter. And then for 1 week, maybe we lose that game, but he can hand the ball off and maybe throw it to our best receiver. I think that's interesting. And of course, I do think it's interesting for like, can Joe Milton or Jalen Milroe in the future be a quarterback in the NFL? They're highly touted, somewhat backups that have veterans in front of them. So there is no route to playing. So those are maybe the guys that if Dak Prescott or Sam Darnold goes down for 2 or 3 games, you get to see maybe the future. And then we get the question of, does he get his job back? Same way Tony Romo didn't give a job back. Dak Prescott didn't give a job back to Tony Romo. That stuff does happen, but
they could turn into a Malik Willis situation where Malik Willis turned an opportunity in Green Bay into getting paid by the Dolphins. So you never know. Let's finish up the show with talking about a report that came out on Tuesday. It was about CTE. So this is a new report which is done by the British Medical Journal. It focused on how common chronic traumatic, uh, I don't even know how to say that word, CTE might be among NFL players. What is found is that of the 878 players who appeared in at least one NFL game and died in that 6-year period between 2016 and 2021, at least 25% had CTE. So just so you know, CTE can only be diagnosed after death. So most research has depended
Yep.
on brains donated to players with their families. The study drew on samples donated between 2008 and 2021, 93% of which had been diagnosed with CTE, then narrowed the sample base on the donations, which with the highest were highest and factored in demographic data and information from death certificates. The estimate of 25% on the low end, said the doctor who did the study. The study found that the maximum possible prevalence of CTE was around 97%, but that true rate is, quote, somewhere in the middle. What's your take on
Yeah.
this newest report?
I mean, I thought that we solved this by putting the pillows on top of the helmets. That didn't fix the. No, I think that I'll just take kind of what you said. I mean, players know the risks at this point. I think that football at the lower levels of youth, pee wee football, and high school, or at least maybe not in high school, gets a little bit different because you're getting recruited. But I think there should be changes to, there should be more and more flag football leagues for. I think middle school football should be flag football almost exclusively. We don't need to be talking about these seventh and eighth graders getting a college offer and those jokes like that of things that aren't even real. But I mean, there's got to be more and more in this, but we knew this was a problem. I think we're just seeing that's probably a bigger problem than even
Yeah.
ever known. And again, this isn't a like tiny sample size either. You're talking about they examined 878 former NFL players who died between 2016 and 2021. So 878, and at least 215 of them had CTE. So it's not like 11 NFL players died in that 5 years, and no, it's a big number.
I think that, and this isn't even talking about the correlation that's now being touted about the correlation between ALS and
Right.
players who had repeated brain injuries and the constant, it's a battering ram sport. It's a contact sport. And that's the thing. Like, for me, you said it, I said it before we hit record. The players, they have to know the risk that they're getting into already. And I think that there's no way they can't. I mean, you talk to kids that are playing in middle school right now, and you say, "Do you know that is there a risk of you playing football?" And that, I guarantee they'd probably to a T say, "Yeah, I understand there's a risk." You can do things to make the game safer by teaching proper tackling technique, by limiting the amount of practices, the amount of tackling, all this stuff. But you can never make the game safe. It is a contact sport. There's going to be injuries. You are tackling them. So unless you just eliminate the game altogether and say football is going to cease to exist, there's always going to be that risk.
Yeah, I just think that, I mean, the extrapolating this to, so most people that play football, obviously, don't play in the NFL, and most of them
Right.
don't play in college. And so how many of the people who play 6 years of middle school and high school football do have CTE? Is that as, I mean, obviously I don't think it's going to be as big of a number, probably, but how much of that causes problems with depression, or how much of that, just different things that are going on in your brain. So I think there's probably a bigger question here that's actually the real question, because taking for granted NFL players who are going to go and make millions of dollars and have their lives changed, they are taking that risk to shorten their life or shorten their happiness or shorten their ability to sleep and all that. And I'm not saying it's right, but that's their risk.
Yeah.
But if people are taking that risk with their 12 to 17-year-olds who will never play in college, or never play, never played even the smallest junior college, what are we talking about? Like, is that so? I think, to me, that's the bigger question that this never going to be able to be answered, is what's the percentage of just regular people who, yeah, I played high school ball for 4 years. How many of those people are having problems at 45 and 50 because of that? And
Well,
maybe it's none. Maybe
and
it's
that's the thing.
maybe it's 1% because they're not as big and they don't hit as hard, and that's maybe it's none. But I'd be more interested in that answer than the NFL players who are who really do know what this risk is.
And that might be something that to me might be the next step of this, process, is finding people that said, I did play 4 years of high school football. I want my brain to be studied for CTE after my death. And they might say, there's none. Like, this guy played, maybe he was an all-state player, played every single down, every single snap, both ways, whatever. And there's none. Okay, so we've seen the extreme, the National Football League player who played a ton of football leading up to being a professional at the highest level. Well, what does it look like for the younger things, the younger kids? I think that's the next step, but we'll see. But it sucks. I hate to talk about that stuff, but it is news, and we wanted to bring it up. So, with all that out of the way, what did you have something else to say to finish that up?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. What's coming up on the Dome Patrol podcast?
Well, Dome Patrol got one more game against the preseason game against the Dallas Cowboys I mentioned earlier.
You're going, right?
The cuts. Do what?
You're going to that game.
I'll be at that game in Dallas. Do that, kind of see what roster cuts are, see if there's any other players that we can feed to LSU, because that'd be great if we could, both teams could have a winning record this year. And then you can find us on X at Dome Patrol PCast, Dome Patrol Podcast on any of our streaming platforms. You can find me on X at HootAtWesley13. I will say, just coming up, we are next week, last week, where we're not going to be talking about games.
Yeah.
So we will talk about our playoff predictions all the way through the 7 seeds and predict our Super Bowl winners. But before we get to that, what's going on the Steelers? I think it's nice that I just want to tell you, because we got shut out in our preseason game, I didn't mention that the Steelers got shut out in their preseason game. So
to the Jets,
I didn't mention it at all. What offensive concerns are you guys addressing on the Steel Curtain Network?
a lot. So you can find us. Thanks for plugging that, by the way. Next week's show, I did want to say that as well. But it's going to be a good show. Make sure you check that out. But Steel Curtain Network, wherever you get your podcast, as well as steelcurtainnetwork.com. Check me out on social media, Jay Hartman, HARTMAN_PIT. Been a great show. Covered a lot of topics, Wesley. Thanks for your time, man. Enjoy the game. We'll talk next week. Take it easy.
See you next week.